Peter Mallouk. Welcome to 1,000 Miles from Wall Street. I'm here with Jared Pierce, who's a CPA and certified financial planner here at Creative Planning. Welcome.
Thanks for having me this morning.
We're going to talk, a perfect subject for you, I think, is talking about taxes and planning and investing, and how, obviously we care about taxes when it comes to money management, because it's not really what you earn, it's what you keep after you pay your taxes. So it's obviously a big factor, but a lot of people let the tax tail wag the dog, and I know you've got a few examples to share with us today.
Right. So what I always tell my clients is anytime you're saving on taxes, that's great. You're maybe saving 15% all the way up to maybe 50% on whatever the gain was and the income. But on the flip side, if you make a bad investment, you participate 100% on the losses of that investment. So from an economic standpoint, the severity of the loss is a lot more so than the benefit you get from a gain. So we don't want to have the taxes drive us to bad investments. The one big example that we have is somebody will maybe come to us with like a concentrated stock position. A while back, they made a bet on a company and that did very well. Their investment went up a lot. And now they're jumping around. They're excited until they look at the unrealized capital gain that they have, and they do the math in their head saying, if I were to ever sell this, I would owe a lot of taxes. And they become paralyzed against ever doing anything about it. So they're adding a lot of risk to their portfolio because a lot of their financial independence and their financial future is really tied to the success or failure of just this one company. So when people come to us with that, we want to lay them on a path where you can get a long-term diversified portfolio in place while at the same time trying to keep taxes as low as possible. So for instance, maybe we'll look at doing a certain amount of capital gains over a period of years where we're trying to stay within a certain tax bracket. Or maybe if they're charitably inclined, we can give some of that stock to charity and they'll get a deduction at the full market value for it. And then they can use the cash they would otherwise given to charity to invest in a diversified portfolio instead. Timing is very important as well. So if somebody's going to be selling a concentrated position at a big gain, we want it to be as early in the year as possible because taxes are based on a calendar. And if we do it early in the year, we have a lot of time to try to offset those gains. So for instance, if I sell some of my stock early in the year, I have a capital gain, then I reinvest those proceeds into a new diversified portfolio and basically reset my cost basis. If there's a market pullback or if there's a correction and some of those positions go down, we can harvest some of those capital losses to offset the capital gain that we had realized, which will help neutralize some of the tax impacts.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. Usually the people who have this big stock, it's the biggest piece of their net worth, and they were working at some huge company that did incredibly well. We have a lot of clients at Facebook, Apple, Google, but we also have folks from IBM, Accenture, companies like that, and that's the stock that got them there. They're not really dying to diversify it, but you build a financial plan and you say, okay, well, you need $3 million to be independent for the rest of your life, and they might have $6 million in one stock. Our goal is always to get the $3 million diversified as quickly as possible because we know that 2 out of 3 of those stocks are going to underperform the S&P 500 going forward. So we can actually get a better rate of return and reduce their risk by diversifying or have the probability of those things happening. And you really want to have a plan that incorporates a lot of the things you talked about, like starting early in the year so you can unwind some of the tax issues that happen throughout the year. That's a very great point. Now, I know we also have a lot of people that are sold investments purely on the tax advantages. And of course, the number one thing that we hear about a lot is somebody coming in and going, hey, someone's proposed this life insurance policy to me, and the big selling point, usually there's 2 big selling points. One, that you can borrow against it, and the other is taxes. And my favorite thing about the borrow against it part is you can borrow against anything. They always come in and go,
you're borrowing against your own money.
I can borrow against my insurance policy. Well, you can borrow against your house. You can borrow against your stocks. You can borrow against your bonds. I mean, there's nothing unique about that. But when we get over to the tax component, that's where it gets a little messier.
Right. So a lot of these policies are sold, and that really they're not intended to be life insurance policies. They're being sold as a way that you can save for retirement while not paying taxes along the way. So if I put $1 million into this life insurance policy, they say, okay, this is going to go into the cash value. It'll be invested and it'll grow tax free. And then, as you said, you can borrow out of it down the road. Well, at the same time, what is really crippling these policies from being really good investments is there's a lot of internal fees. A lot of people are paying for life insurance policies that they just don't need anymore. For people who do need life insurance, there's a lot cheaper alternatives in these whole life policies. And the investments themselves just typically aren't as good either because, again, it's from a small list of funds. It's not from the entire universe of investments that are out there. And they're going to underperform. So if you look at the after-tax return from like a traditional investment portfolio that's well diversified and invested well compared to the pre-tax return of what's going on in these life insurance policies, a lot of times the after-tax tax is still coming out ahead just because there's better investment solutions there. What they also don't tell you a lot of times with these permanent life insurance policies is as you continue to get older, the embedded life insurance component is going to get more expensive, is going to really deplete the cash value or the investment piece of that. If it gets down low enough to where there's no longer enough money there to pay for the life insurance, well, then you might have to turn around and start putting money into it. And if you can't do that, all this money that you've taken out as a loan is basically going to be income that's showing up on your return, and you'll have a very, very negative tax impact down the road, which will more than wipe away any of the tax savings that you might have had from the deferral between now and then.
Yeah, and I think if that was a great explanation of that. If it's too hard for a listener to follow, the simple rule is you buy insurance for survivor needs or estate planning. You don't buy it as an investment for the reasons you talked about.
Those should always be separate.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks for being with us, Jared.
Thank you.
This commentary is provided for general information purposes only and should not be construed as investment, tax, or legal advice. Past performance of any market results is no assurance of future performance. The information contained herein has been obtained from sources deemed to be reliable but is not guaranteed.